All right, we're back. I don't know what's going on. Like, honestly. Please stand by. We're experiencing technical difficulties. I wish it was fucking technical difficulties. I don't think it is. Like, I legit think that this is, like censorship of some sort. If you know what I am saying. If you know what I'm saying, if you're catching my drift, etc., etc. Blah, 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 blah. Like, it didn't happen on, it didn't happen on Twitch, did it? Is it because we're watching something for too long? I wonder if it is. Maybe it's got something to do with that. It's not even working over here. Can somebody from Twitch land say something in the chat? Somebody in YouTube world, do the same, please. Ravy, I can see you're there. Dilemmas, you're there. Thank you very much. Something. All right, cool. I said it. I said the thing he asked for. I've done my part. All right, cool. All right, it looks like we're back. I don't know if I can I don't think I can continue to play that thing anymore. We might get kicked off. I don't know if it's because the organizations or the channels that we're watching have some type of like special, I don't know, like marker on them, and like the YouTube algorithm is picking them up, or what. I'm not sure how it works exactly, but like as people start to filter back in, I'm actually gonna have a break. Like we're gonna have a quick break now. I know people just jump back on, but like as the people filter back in, hopefully they filter back in over the next like 5 minutes or something while I have a quick break. But like, yeah, I don't think we can finish that DM25 thing. We're gonna have to leave it there. I think we got the gist of it, right? Oof, brutal. But yeah, hopefully people start to filter back in. We had like 18 people across platforms watching, and like they're all gone now. We've dropped to 6. So like hopefully people start filtering back in. But like as people filter back in, like I said, we're gonna have a quick break. And when we come back, I did want to have a look at Chris Hedges, something that Bandsaw Bandit had suggested for Chris Hedges. The ones that count, yeah, fair enough. But yeah, like if there are other suggestions that people want to watch for this special King's birthday public holiday, let me know. But I wouldn't mind having a look at that. It's an interesting talk, to be honest. Sometimes particular chats can set it off. Has anyone copyright struck you or given a DCMA? I'm not sure what a DCMA is, but a copyright strike, no. It doesn't seem like it. Doesn't seem like anything like that, to be honest, on the channel. So like, yeah, not sure. But like this seems to be a uniquely YouTube phenomenon, to be honest. You should check out Barnaby Fumbling Policy. Yeah, all right. Look, I'm happy. Like I said, it's a do the PBD discussion. All right, like I'm down with that. Like if it's a funny debate, like why not? Okay. All right, let's have a quick break. Like I said, and like people might start filtering back in over the next like 5 to 10 minutes, back to where we were before, and then we'll keep an eye out if you get a flag. All right, I'll keep an eye out, and then like we'll have a look at something else. I'm not going back to that video because obviously that's caused a problem, I think. So we'll line up the PBD thing that you guys said was brutal. Watch something brutal, shall we? You'll get a kick out of it? Okay, fair enough. Just for you. Oh, well, thanks for looking out for me, actually. If you think I'll get a kick out of it. All right, let's have a quick break. Nice try, Masad. And like let people filter back in. I think there's still just a few people that were here before that are missing, but like majoritively are back now. Quick break, and then we'll be back.
When they tell me why. When they tell me why. Why.
We're back. We're back. Let's do this. Oh, so they're debating over Iran. Is that what's going on here? With this piece. I actually thought more people would filter in. It looks like we actually lost half of the people having a break. But like maybe people are just waiting for us to return potentially. But yeah, we're back. And we're going to be watching a crowd favorite, apparently. This guy, Mehdi Hasan, I'm going to say, versus this dude. It's like battle of the ethnics here, by the look of it. On PBD. Mehdi Hasan joins Patrick Bet David for a no-holds-barred discussion on Trump, Benjamin Netanyahu, Israel, Iran, Gaza, future of American power, etc., etc., etc. Fucking look at that. 19,000 comments. God damn. 17,000 likes. All right, let's have a look. Some people might be lurking and need to refresh sometimes if they don't chat. It won't count as a viewer. Yeah, I've noticed. Like if you've got multiple tabs open, you just listen in the background. I've noticed that like it's changed now and it doesn't count as a viewer. So there could be more people, I guess, watching. They've just got multiple tabs open. Anyway, let's get onto this. That's me. LOL. Yeah. Are you ready to be value-tained? I don't know. I saw this pop up before and you and Dilemmas were laughing about it. I'm a bit scared now when you guys get together and laugh about stuff. It's like, uh-oh, what's going on? I'm always doing multiple things at once. Yeah, fair enough. I consider this stream to be like talkback radio a lot of the time. People just listen in the background. They're just like, while they're doing gardening or something, and they're just like, yeah, that's right. You say it, Mr. 8. You say it. Yeah, this was just absolutely awful on PDB's part. Okay, so like everyone's against this. Okay. Valuetainment is the name of his production company. Oh, okay. Right. Wow. It sounds wonderful. It's 2.5 hours? Oh my God. All right, let's just get the good stuff then, shall we? Let's have a crack. All right, shove yourselves in. I think we're watching the whole thing, I guess. Unless there is other stuff that you want. Like if there are better clips of this. These channels do tend to have a clips channel. More than happy if someone wants to throw that at me. But let's get a vibe of it while we're waiting. Peanut Butter David. PBD.
My handshakers. Spokesperson out there. We have a special guest in the house. One of the biggest MAGA spokesperson out there in the world, hardcore MAGA. Now a capitalist. He runs a very successful business now after leaving MSNBC. He's crushing it. But it's great to have you on the podcast today, Mehdi Hasan.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
Yes, of course. And you know, obviously, I've been watching you for many years, and we reached out. We said let's invite him on board, and then Rob said, Mehdi said, yeah.
We'll be here for 5 hours if we're lucky. All right, let's just get a taste for this then. You can check out timestamps for best topics. Do you have any suggestions? Like, do you want, like, what was that tickled your fancy the most on this debate? Make random ass inaccurate claim. 1. 2. Laugh off your claims being debunked and everything your opponent says. 3. Hope you win. I like Mehdi. He knows how to argue properly, at least. As crap as some of his points and views are. Go to their YouTube channel and go to shorts. Look at their biggest views. But like specifically, we're looking at this debate between these two people, though. That's the thing. Like we can look at this channel generally. But like I think this is supposed to be about a debate. Yeah, recently. Okay. The whole way. So dealer's choice. All right, fair enough. Trump, Zohran Mamdani, and political charisma. Israel's influence. Qatar, China. Foreign money in universities. Free speech, campus, protests, and anti-Zionism. That might be interesting. I want to hear their thoughts on Mamdani, though.
Capitalist.
A multi-millionaire socialist, which is great.
I'm going to slow it down then if we're not watching the whole thing. I'll never forgive Jubilee for putting Mehdi up against actual white supremacists without telling him. That was fucking dangerous. Immigration, Trump questions, Iran part. There was also some commentary somewhere. Some class commentary somewhere? Okay. The I don't debate fascist line was gold. Immigration, Trump questions, Iran part. Got it. Okay. Any Trump related questions? Okay. And immigration? I wonder what they talk about immigration. Maybe Muslims in America? Islamophobia? Oh, and race migration? Yeah, let's watch this part.
I think that's horrific.
That's UK.
I think that's horrific. He had a kid while he was in prison. Donald Trump, the Family Values Party, the Republican Party, didn't let this guy be with his wife when she gave birth, didn't let him hold his baby.
What do you say about Henry Nowak, what I just showed you?
I think that's horrific.
That's UK.
I think that's horrific.
But this is
I don't know the details, but obviously the police got it wrong.
This is the part that kind of, so you represented the media on the left, okay? So Rob, can you go back to that story, that New York Times, if you search the two different words of George Floyd versus what happened with Novak, you just had it up right now a minute ago.
Come on, you're going to do this?
No, he's
the media
gonna be
is
fine.
The media is.
But wait a minute. This is New York Times. Go to the first one.
I'm not a fan of the news.
You type in Henry Nowak. How many names? Results 19. Go to the next one, Rob. George Floyd 6397. There is no incentive to tell this story because it doesn't go with the narrative.
So I disagree with you. I grew up in the UK. Right-wing media has been telling these stories all my life. All I've seen is black people and Muslim people on the front pages. Have you looked at the front pages of the Daily Mail, the Daily Express? What do you mean the UK is being destroyed?
You think UK is doing good?
Yeah, I mean, no, but not for the reasons you think.
Why do you think UK is not doing good?
I think economically it's doing very badly. It had very bad leadership for the last 15 years. I was there. The Conservative government that came in 2010 did an austerity program after the financial crisis.
You put
basically
on Cameron.
destroyed.
Cameron is
David Cameron and George Osborne
Yep.
did an austerity program that basically gutted the British state, gutted our competitiveness, didn't cut the deficits, actually ruined our fiscal credibility, downgraded our credit rating.
DBD's debate tactic. Hey, I'm walking here. Come on, bro. Fair enough. Knowing Jubilee, they probably gave him a grape whistle. They're the worst debate channel. They also totally mogged him on the election part. This word, mogged.
Destroyed our growth over the course of a decade, undermined our health service.
Do you put anything tied to immigration to that?
No.
None.
Immigration's been a boost for the British economy. In fact, cutting immigration is bad. Look at Brexit. Brexit's been a disaster for the British economy. Do you know how many people in Britain want to rejoin the EU? A majority. Pull that up. The majority of Britons want to go back into the EU. Why do you think that is? Why do you think that is, Pat?
Do you think?
Why do you think Britons want to go back into the EU?
You
just said Britain's being destroyed.
No, but have you looked at the
EU.
crime numbers? What's going on in UK?
Crime is very low.
Have you looked at
crime
what's going on?
Crime is very low, Patrick.
So let me ask you.
Do you know what the crime rate in London is?
Did you see the tweet that came out
I know you're not a fan of Sadiq Khan. You're not a fan of my good friend Sadiq Khan, are you?
What EU did, you saw the tweet that came out, what EU was saying they're doing, that they want to find a way to get rid of illegal immigrants?
Okay, you're jumping around, Patrick. Britain is not in the EU. We're talking about Britain. You just said Britain's being destroyed, which is nonsense. And then you said crime rate. Have you looked at the London crime rates? Last year, London had its lowest.
Arguing from lived experience is just arguing your subjective opinion, not fact. Come on, Mehdi, you're better than that. But like, isn't that the problem when you debate someone and you say, oh, but in this country, something's happened. That person's like, I lived in that country. And that's not true. This is what my experience is. Did I miss the Chris Hedges segment? No, we actually haven't started that. We're watching some of this. There's some debate that's happened between this guy, Mehdi, and some guy from PBD. And apparently he gets absolutely destroyed. So Chat's won the day on this one, and we're watching a little bit of this guy get destroyed. Like, I actually do want to see this guy from PBD and like see how he argues stuff. And like so far it looks a bit painful, to be honest. Very painful. This is the shorts they upload, just shows views. He's able to see the most moments from this that the most talked about. If you're interested after, yeah, thank you. But like, do you reckon they'll put in like the parts where their own presenter gets kind of destroyed or not? Mystery, your audience are nerds. Yeah, pretty much. Hey, why not? Hey, let 1,000 blossoms bloom, Ravy. Meanwhile, in northern Queensland, in the top end,
Per capita murder rate since records began. destroyed, which is nonsense. And then you said crime rate. Have you looked at the London crime rates?
You
Last year, London had its lowest per capita murder rate since records began, had the lowest volume of homicides for 30 years under Sadiq Khan, third-term mayor, who people in America, Elon Musk, Donald Trump, get very worked up about. I don't know if you guys get worked up about him. Been a very successful mayor, and crime has come down by record numbers. Violent crime and murder.
When you're looking at EU, do you know which country in EU has the lowest rape rate?
Talk about the UK, Patrick.
Stay with UK. Stay with
The UK is not in the EU anymore, sadly.
EU to me, I'll put them somewhat together in the
Even
same
though
area.
they left 10 years ago.
By the way,
Okay.
so you're saying immigration coming from all these countries has been a successful project for the EU?
What's your definition of success?
Many different ways.
Economically, the EU desperately needs migrants. Have you seen the age rate? Pull up the demographic.
Okay, so
it's a dying continent with a very low birth rate, as Elon Musk likes to point out.
So when you think
They got
about,
no one there to work, to pay taxes, to look after the elderly, to run their health services, etc.
maybe the one argument I'll go to see what you'll say about this. Do you think the West, when it comes down to West, Muslims can coexist with the
we just
West?
took a handbrake
I'm curious. I'm curious.
We went from Britain's being destroyed to London crime to EU to Muslims.
I'm curious.
Okay, we got to Muslims.
Tell me where you are with this. Do you think they can
I'm
coexist?
Muslim. So what do you think my
Do you think
answer
they can coexist?
Do you think I can coexist with
I
them?
think you can coexist.
Why me?
Educated.
Oh my god. This is gonna be awful. Oh my god. I'm Muslim, you fucking idiot. Alright, you can coexist, but the rest of them, outrageous. Now the crime rate stats are a really good, valid argument. Objective. Mehdi debates like a machine gun. He kind of does. Like, I guess it looks even more brutal because we've sped it up a bit. I sped it up, right? No, it's not sped up. It's just normal. LOL, the mental gymnastics. Bro, Mehdi's too good. Holy crap. Yeah, he's not even sped up. This is just normal pace. But you're a different Muslim. Yeah, it was like when we were watching Pauline Hanson that time after she was defending her comments that there's no good Muslims. And she was just like, I met a Muslim once. And they were a nice person. But they had completely left their faith behind. So they weren't Muslim then. Yeah, I guess you could say that. You're a good Muslim, Mehdi. I can't. These right-wing idiots get dumber every time. Well, it's just kind of... Like, if this is the guy that is the face of this type of banter, like he's built an empire, a media empire, making these calls. And it just like takes one dude in 2 hours to be like, this is just, it just sounds stupid what you're saying. Like this, like it just shows like how flimsy this house of cards is. His entire media empire built on like propaganda and fear mongering. And he can't even respond to one guy with like a few insightful comments. Yeah, as long as you're with the good ones. It's so funny because PBD says he's a stats man and wants to grok everything. It's 2.5 hours of this the whole way through. Does it make you think differently, Dilemmas, or you're just like, no, this guy just sucks. Like, he just didn't do it justice. Like, do you think differently hearing Mehdi dismantle this guy's talking points? Or does it make you want to double down on your own? This is the South Park difficulty slider, but with Muslim mods. Pauline has a Muslim running on one of her seats. The dumb shit. Patrick has a huge empire. Yeah, like imagine watching the emperor get destroyed. It'd make you question your reality, wouldn't it? Like, it'd have to. He comes from an insurance background. Interesting.
You're a worker. You're now a capitalist. You're contributing. You're creating jobs. You're exist.
Why me?
Educated. You're a worker. You're now a capitalist. You're contributing. You're creating jobs. I would say you're net positive.
Do you not think most Muslims do that?
I don't think depending on where they're coming from, they don't. Because if their countries did a good job, why would they leave it?
War that we caused?
War that who caused?
That we caused.
So they're leaving because of us.
Well, you know the big controversy in the UK over the boats, the small boats coming across the channel. Do you know what the top 3 nationalities are in those boats?
Tell me.
Iran number 1.
Okay.
Afghanistan number 2, Iraq number 3. Now, Iran is a current war. Let's park Iran. But are you telling me we're not responsible for the mess in Afghanistan and Iraq? Come on.
When you look at this, let me show you this. Rob, can you pull this up? When it comes down to, let me see which one I got here.
I love Rob bringing up these.
No,
I love he brings this up.
I know you like numbers.
No, I love it. I love being proved right as well. It's
per capita.
Good for my ego.
No. Per capita. When you look at the countries, Rob, I think you got it. Gulf states, how they perform per capita versus some of the other Muslim nations.
Okay.
Look at this one here.
Because they got oil and gas.
You think it's only oil and gas that's causing them? You don't think?
Did you know what these countries were like in
Let
the
me ask you a question.
70s?
Iran has plenty of oil. How come they're not in here?
Maybe
Iraq has got oil.
Can I answer your question?
But this has been going on for a minute. This is not a one-year thing.
Can I answer your question?
Sure.
Why do you think Iran's not doing well economically? Should I go through the list?
You're going to say it's sanctions. You're going to say it's
course I'm
because
gonna
of
say
America.
sanctions.
You're going to say it's America's fault.
Not just America's fault.
So how come
but partly. Hold on. How much? Okay,
This is awful. Why would people watch this guy after this? PBD tried to give Gillian Michaels her own show, and she walked out after. Anna Kasparian tore her to shreds on Is Not Real. I can't even follow what they're talking about. Like, why is he just bringing up new stuff? What's going on? I've watched too many PBD podcasts, lol. Oh, man. Fuck. The fitness, babe?
You left Iran during the Iran-Iraq war, right? Is that
I left Iran after Khomeini died, 6 weeks after Khomeini died.
Okay, so Iran-Iraq was done by then. So
Iran-Iraq was 15th, 89.
So Iran-Iraq was done. Iran-Iraq was 1980 to 1988.
Yes.
$600 billion of damage done to Iranian infrastructure, the economy, the cost of that war. That was a war that Saddam Hussein.
Oh, you put it on Saddam.
Whose fault do you think it is? Who invaded who?
So, by the way,
hold on, Patrick. Come on.
You don't at all put that on IRGC?
No, I put it on the
You don't put it on Islamic Revolutionary Guard?
I put it on the country that invades the other country. That's how the world works. I blame Russia for the Ukraine war.
Why
they
do
invaded
they have a hard
Ukraine.
time getting along with other people?
Why did Saddam Hussein? Are you pro
Iran.
Saddam?
No. Why does Iran have a hard time getting along with other people?
That was what I said. I said there was an Iran-Iraq war. You said, is America to blame? I said, yes, we backed Saddam Hussein. Did we not back Saddam Hussein? Did Donald Rumsfeld not fly and hug? You can pick up Rob can bring up a video of Donald Rumsfeld hugging Saddam Hussein in 1983 in Baghdad. Were we not supporting the Iraqi invasion of Iran that cost Iran 1 million lives? $600 billion of infrastructure damage. You're saying that didn't play any role in Iran's economic future.
Why don't they?
You're not answering my question.
No, but you don't understand what I'm saying. No. But Mehdi, let me ask you.
You want me to acknowledge that?
No, but look, let's give credit to, for instance, when Mamdani goes to the White House, you and I both gave credit to both of them for being diplomatic.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Do you think Iranian leadership with the IRGC is diplomatic?
No. They've been horrific in their leadership. I think they've given themselves, they've given their opponents a stick with which to beat them. I was a big critic of Ahmadinejad back in the day. He said dumb things.
So do you think Khomeini was good for Iran?
Do I think Khomeini was good for Iran?
Do you think Khomeini was good for Iran?
No, in hindsight, of course not. If you look at the record
so
today,
then we're on the same page. What I'm trying to do is, I've
said this.
Jamesh in the house, how you going? PBD, like, hold on, let me show some bullshit. PBD entered it like a negotiation, so he's jumping topics instead of going into the weeds of each topic. Okay. And so, like, he's just firing topics and just hoping that, like, he doesn't go into detail on them. This is awful.
Before I went on Piers Morgan's show, just to be clear, for people who don't know, I'm Shia. Right? I'm a Shia Muslim.
I know you're Shia.
Which is the majority religion in Iran.
Sure.
Right? So but there are two types of Shias. This is a very crude, I'm trying to explain to your audience. Religiously, theologically, politically, there's two types of Shias. There are those who believe in what's called Vilayat Faqih, WF. They believe that Khomeini, this was a political theory, some say a religious theory, pushed by Ayatollah Khomeini, that said that the clerics, the Ayatollahs, the mullahs, whatever you want to call them, they should rule. Power should be with them. That is the model that Iran has followed. There is another school of thought that comes out of Iraq, mainly out of a city called Najaf, and an Ayatollah called Sistani, who is the leading Shia Ayatollah in Iraq today. And they say, no, we are all for religion. We're all, we want everyone to practice Islam, Shia Islam, but we're not going to rule. After the American...
I have seen Tim Pool, but like I haven't seen his debates, like him debating people. The first time I came across him, I think he was on like Piers Morgan, actually. He's the guy with like who always wears a beanie and stuff like that, right? With the headphones on. But his skill is that he's able to rapid fire points, so it sticks and grabs onto that. It's effective tactic. Yeah, Beanie, yes. Yeah, that's the guy. Yeah. Like, it's effective because, like, if you actually know what you're talking about is effective, as opposed to just vibing it and hoping that you hit points. It's very effective being informed. Pool is a tosser. Okay. Medi can listen and think at the same time. He does the same shit. It's so common. Dim tool. Very good. Yeah, but it's just lame. Because, like, when you come up against something like this, then it's just, you just look stupid. I also don't know how Medi says he's Shia. If that's true, his imam must be pissed at him. Tim fool. People do that in real life. It's annoying. Yeah, it is. Either that he's not practicing.
Topple Saddam. Ayatollah Sistani did not do a Khomeini. He did not say, I'm going to become supreme leader of Iraq. He said, have elections, democracy, vote. I'm going to stay in my house and I'm going to give you advice, religious advice when you need it. I follow the Ayatollah Sistani view of the world, crudely put. Sure. I don't follow the Ayatollah Khomeini view of the world. So when you say to me, was he good for Iran? As a governmental system, no, I don't support the governing system of Iran the way it is. But you're changing the subject. You're avoiding you are.
I'm not.
There was an 8-year war. We were talking about Iran's economy.
I lived there. Trust me, I lived there. I witnessed it.
I understand.
You should entertain the idea of living in a Muslim majority country, see what it's like.
I understand.
I lived there.
You're jumping around.
I'm not.
You were talking about the economy.
Iraq, Iran. I'll let you finish your thought, and then I'll go back to my question that I had.
So
go ahead, finish your thought.
I'm going to finish my thought. Well, it doesn't. It's a thought that requires a response from you, which is, if there's an 8-year war that Iraq started and we supported, that cost $600 billion to Iran, that took out 1 million members of their population, and then was followed by crazy sanctions. Are you telling me then that it's fair to compare that economy with Abu Dhabi? Are you seriously telling me that's a fair comparison?
Can you go back to that chart again, Rob, for me? So you just defended Iraq, right? That we backed up Iraq.
Yes.
That went against Iran.
Yeah.
How come they're not on the top GDP per capita on this list?
Do you know what happened to Iraq after the Iran-Iraq war?
So now you have another reason. It's America's fault again.
I mean, do you study history, Patrick? Do you know what happened in 1991? We did a Gulf. The Gulf. Saddam idiotically invaded Kuwait.
Victimhood language for you to say.
It's victimhood language. Like, it's just, all this stuff is just so stupid. Like, you do have to understand history to be able to talk about this stuff. Like, do you not remember there was a war in Iraq as well? Oh my god. Either that or he's not practicing. It's all one-sided. You can't fluster. Like, you could if you challenged him intellectually. But, like, obviously this guy here, Mr. Peanut Butter over here, is not intellectually challenging Mehdi at all. Patrick is a moron. Learn some history. Like, it doesn't take much to, like, he's just like on to the next rhetorical trope, which is like, it's just blaming America. It's just all victimhood stuff. Like, that rhetoric is powerful when used correctly, and being like, oh, you're just playing the victim. Stop having a victim complex about this, and like, America's always bad, and you just blame everything on America. No. Okay, like, that sort of stuff is stupid, just blaming everything on America or something like that. But if you're actually talking about historic examples where the US has led a charge and destroyed someone's civilization, which has led them to being in a worse off economic situation, then, like, that's a historical, that's a factor. That's a huge argument in favor of your claim. It's not just being like, it's America's fault because America exists. That's very different stuff, man. What are they even debating? Like, I'm assuming this guy, he keeps showing a chart saying that Europe, like, Muslim-led countries suck. Or like ones like with a particular style of governance suck, and like, look at how bad their economies are going. And he's just like, he's just pointing to all the ones that are doing well as being linked to oil, and then he's trying to say like the Iran and Iraq have not been able to prosper, and their economies are not doing well because of their governance style. And then this guy's like, but it's because of all of the war and the destruction. and sanctions. So like, what are they debating? Actually, at this point, it seems like not much, because this guy seems to be devoid of any historic reality. I'm like, what? It's fair to compare it to, say, Russia and China, though. They also have sanctions and don't have similar economic issues. Like, what sanctions? What sanctions did China have? Exactly. What are you talking about there? I thought China was opened up to the world market. Yeah, saying it's all US is dumb, like, kind of thing. But like, that generalized statements are usually pretty dumb like that. The largest Muslim country is Indonesia. But there's no one in the room to even challenge Mehdi. This dude is brain dead. Yeah, I think that's the thing. And he just makes this Mehdi guy look really, like, really sharp, right? Or maybe he's a grifter because they don't want to admit the fact that American companies have fucked up these nations over, or for resources. It's more of a clinic show. So show PBD, there are more layers than he likes to see. Answers the questions, goes down to what happens and who benefited from what happened. The US has heavily sanctioned on many Chinese goods, don't they? Well, like, don't they have like are we talking about like tariffs? But like sanctions, like heavy sanctions, like tariffs? Yeah, like what like type of economic situation are we talking about here? America, fuck yeah, that's why. But I suppose Patrick is right. America has won everything. Never had a casualty of war. Best economy ever. Greatest president ever. No debate, really. LOL. Oh, man. This is tough. This is tough watching. Like, it's hilarious. But, like, fuck.
So on one end,
Wow.
on one end, you're saying this. On the other end, you say, no, it's because
You're
of this.
comparing countries. You're showing me a graph comparing countries that have never been bombed, invaded, and occupied with countries that have been bombed, invaded, occupied, and then you say, why is the GDP per capita higher in one, not the other?
Why haven't
That's an insane comparison.
Why
with
have
respect.
they made so much progress? Why? They're Muslim majority.
Yeah.
Okay, why have they made so much progress?
I mean, first of all,
and by the way, at this point, just so you know, the argument is now not about Muslim.
I know it's not.
I know, but the argument is why are
Yeah, like tariffs. Oh, okay, fair enough. But like everyone kind of tariffs in a way. Like they protect their industry or local economy somehow with some type of rules and regulations. And like, yeah, China just does a lot of exporting to the US, so they get hit up with like heaps of tariffs, I guess. Yeah, okay, fair enough. Like sanctions is like you do business with this fucking person or this state or something, and you're cut off from almost the global economy or anywhere where the US has control over the currency. But like, yeah, fair enough. Like China's still done well despite tariffs and stuff like that. Yeah, I guess. Remember, folks, in YouTube, activate the like button. Oh yeah, this is a new stream, isn't it? Yeah, if you haven't already and you're on YouTube, like, please activate the like button. US has restricted Huawei pretty tightly. Yes. Okay. Yep. Cool. Huawei. Yep. Very tightly. And not just in the US as well. They made all of their security partners do the same thing. Fair point. China just worked with the countries the US didn't pay too much attention to over the decades. Keep in mind that PBD has the Valuetainment Media Company, which does political opinion. So you've got two media personalities on opposing sides going at it. Yeah. And like, that's good. So you'd expect a good debate as opposed to like someone just dropping rhetoric, like rhetoric, basically. Oh, no, you can't say like America's responsible. That's just victimhood. Like, why can't you say that? Like, if it's historically relevant, why can't you say that? Why not? Bring it up. If there is a historical precedent for this, like just brushing it off as like victimhood stuff or having a victim complex is mental. That's not debating. I think we ban multiple companies too. Yep. There's a lot of harsh sanctions. Okay. There are plenty of people responsible on multiple sides. Yeah. Yeah, look, I see, like, let's bring up the Huawei example. I don't see banning Huawei as an attempt to bring down, like, cripple China's economy. Like, if that's their tactic, like, that's gonna basically, like, China's gonna fall over economically and die in a hole somewhere by banning Huawei from everybody, from like the surveillance capitalist network. Like, I don't know. I don't think that's the same as the way that the US has placed sanctions on Iran, for example. Yeah, I don't know. Being a good media personality doesn't make for a good debate. Yeah. And you can see the quality of the information behind it. Spyware could be a legit threat. Just looked at Israeli tech. Maybe it was a self-tell. Yeah. We're blaming all of a country's economic woes on foreign tariffs, sanctions, trade in any way. It's just a little oversimplification. Say it with me. It's just a factor. But like, he didn't just say that. Like, sanctions are a massive factor on Iran. Like, people can't do business with Iran and do business with the rest of the world. That's not like sanctioning Huawei specifically. Like, America still does business with China. They don't do business with Iran or like anyone associated with them. Like, that's like, okay, it's a factor, but like, it's a massive factor in the case of Iran. And like, one company, one slither of part of of one of the industries in China that we're talking about with Huawei, as well as like the death toll and the impacts of war in the country itself. So like, he didn't just say, I think he said it was a multitude of things, but fair enough. Well, now we're talking intent. Do you think Iranian sanctions are purely economic instability? Do you think China's are the same? No, like, and they've admitted that China's banning, like, America banning Huawei from the West is about security. They've been very clear in their intentions. Iran, they've been very clear in their intentions as well, to topple their fucking government. So like, yes, I think the intention is very clear because they broadcasted it. Like, they said it multiple times before they started this round of the Iran war, because they were trying to cripple. They were trying to cripple the economy in such a way that the people would rise up and overthrow the IRGC, so they wouldn't even have to go and bomb them. But like, I think the Huawei situation was just like, let's not let China into the surveillance capitalist architecture that is like the West has, or America has, full dominion over. I think the intent is very important in these cases, I believe, anyway. Russia might be a better example. Yeah, because they continually, like, whenever they need to, they kind of just let Russia sell a little bit more oil to the market. Whenever they feel like it, Russia's sanctioned, and then when they don't, they let them supply a little bit more oil to the world market.
Some winning, some are not.
And I explained war plays a big role in this.
Well, Mehdi, a part of it makes
I just pointed out to you the three biggest refugee groups on the boats going into England are Iran, Iraq, Afghanistan.
Sure, yeah.
Coincidence? No, those are war-torn countries.
I'm not disputing that. What I'm trying to tell you is, even with that, if you sit here and say every single time everything is America's fault, what responsibility do they take? Do they take any responsibility that they're not making the right decision for other people?
Just to be clear, people can rewind. Rob does screenshots, but people watching on YouTube can rewind. Never did I say it's all America's fault. I've never said that. Have you read? You said you've read my stuff. You've seen my stuff.
I've seen your
I'm
stuff.
very critical of Muslim majority countries. I am very critical of the Iranian government. I'm very critical of the Saudi government. I'm very critical
What
of the
feedback would you give?
Emirati
What do you
government.
think they can do?
I do a show for Al Jazeera and I grilled the Qatari foreign minister on that show about the lack of democracy.
Dude, I've seen your
I'm
stuff.
critical of
I know.
Arab
I've seen
governments, Muslim government, Pakistan.
Do you think the Middle East is a safer place with IRGC in charge of running America or somebody like a Pezeshkian? More to moderates.
Of course, I'm more of a moderate. I would like to see. And again, who undermined the moderates in Iran? Sorry, it's going to be the answer
I
you don't
agree.
like. The United States of America.
No, I disagree.
The United States of America.
No, I disagree. I don't think that's the case.
Who
Israel.
Oh well.
No, I don't. Put
Our
it on.
proxy then.
No, but
undermined.
listen to you were not expecting my answer.
No, because I don't accept this fake split between U.S. and Israel.
But this is not it. But let me tell you I do, because what I see going on right now is I see Israel. In a way, I actually like what's taking place. Let me explain to you why I like what's taking place. A part of what's going on right now is the world is able to see Bibi's motive versus
Throwback to me saying stop creating migrants to stop migration. Wait, what? LOL?
explain to you why I like what's taking place. A part of what's going on right now is the world is able to see Bibi's motive versus Trump's motive. Like, you remember that one time when the Trump and Bibi are on stage speaking, and he's saying, yeah, we're thinking about taking over Gaza, and we're going to build a hotel here. And then you see Bibi goes like, wait, what? You never told me that. He kind of got, I don't know if you remember that session or not.
Okay.
Okay.
The West Bank equivalent.
So a part of it for me, I like that this is happening because I prefer this to be in the public's eye. I prefer for Trump to show, hey, listen, if I want to go become a prime minister of Israel, I would do it. You're there just because of me. I like him saying that publicly.
All right.
I like that that is taking place. But to me, who wants IRGC to be gone?
It's a couple of things. On the Trump point, I agree. It's better these things happen in public, and there is a weird upside to Trump having such a big mouth and saying crazy shit all the time. There is a pro to that. I get that. But let's not forget, Patrick, you saw the New York Times big piece where we discovered from Maggie Haberman and Jonathan Swan that Benjamin Netanyahu went to the Situation Room and made the case to Trump with Mossad joining via Zoom or wherever it was, and he persuaded Trump that this will be a walk in the park, cakewalk, all of that shit. That happened in private.
What's your percentage that happened?
That happened in private.
What's your percentage that
high
happened?
percentage.
Give me a number, 80%?
80%.
I'm 50-50 that happened.
Okay. You think Trump did it on his own without Netanyahu?
No. I said I'm 50-50, meaning I believe there's a 50% chance because...
But you don't deny that behind the scenes, the Israelis are putting pressure on the U.S.
Of course I know.
Okay. So then to come back to your
but
broader
I don't
point,
think he's Bush. I don't think he's Obama. I don't think he's Biden. I don't think he's those guys.
In many ways, he's worse.
No. I don't think
he doesn't have any independent views.
The one thing I know with you...
All right. Are there any other segments of this that were worth watching? Free speech on campus. MSNBC exit. Art of debate persuasion. Trump, Fox News, Joe Rogan. Greater Israel. I really want to hear this one. Trump and Zoran Mamdani. I want to know their opinions on this. Sorry, I'm going to debate the other half of this, seeing as PPD is doing such a shit job. All right. I do want to hear about this, though. I hope they talk about evil communism.
Capitalist. There you
A
go.
multi-millionaire socialist, which is economic to have...
And I've never run anything in my life, so I was very worried.
So maybe that PPE degree you got in economics, that capitalist was inside of you and we brought it out. So that's great.
Okay.
Welcome to the Club of Capitalists. It's great to have you with us.
I'm a socialist/capitalist. There you go.
A multi-millionaire socialist, which is great.
Nothing wrong with that? Bernie's a millionaire.
Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that. But let's go to the part about you brought up Trump and Bibi. So Axios brings out the story. At this point, you've seen it. So, Rob, if you want to go down so I can read the whole thing, you're effing crazy. Trump fumes at Netanyahu in call on Lebanon. Go a little bit lower, Rob, so I can read the whole thing. Oh, yeah. So President Trump last out of Israel over Israel escalation in Lebanon and an expletive Latin...
for a second. So this guy's a socialist and he's a multimillionaire, so he's not allowed to be a socialist. It's a pretty typical line I've heard before. Lame 20 seconds. They spoke about that before. Okay, fine. Free speech. Let's do this. Campus protests and anti-Zionism. I wonder how everyone feels about this. Should like the Trump administration clamp down on people protesting for Palestine on campuses in America? So much for the fucking First Amendment, eh? Evil communism. Just, what is that? Pleonasm? What is that? Bernie saved his pennies wisely. Yeah. Has a couple of properties. Everybody in Australia would be, like everyone with one property in Australia would be a multimillionaire or a millionaire by that measure. All right, let's do this. Freedom
with that
of
guy
speech.
winning, he was a guy that was not even years. Paxton won.
Yeah.
So what happened with that guy winning? He was a guy that was not even supposed to win. He had issues. Letters came out with his wife. All this other stuff. It wasn't a pretty thing. So I don't know if their influence. Don't get me wrong. When you talk about Mary, you know, she's put up some real money there. I mean,
Trump's been very open about it.
she's put up some real money there.
And can I say, I don't think we're disagreeing that much. I think we're not actually disagreeing. I agree with you. I'm the first to say I'm very happy to see young people switching on this. I never thought a day would come in my lifetime where polls showed that the American public supports Palestine more than Israel, which we're now seeing from Pew and Gallup. That's an amazing change in public opinion for people like me. But what I'm trying to say to you is all of that is valueless, worthless.
Quick debate pause. Just a reminder, you're a champagne socialist. Now get back to the topic. Yeah. Pleonasm. Did I say that right? Pleonasm. 2 words that mean the same thing used together. Okay.
Why the AIPAC calculation might make sense to AIPAC is, well, who cares what public opinion say? If we can, it is short term, but if we can control, but they don't think long term.
No.
Maybe the Chinese do. The Israelis think short term.
No,
the Israelis
I'm not talking Israeli.
Okay.
I'm talking about those who wanted to make sure, like, whatever their belief is, whatever your belief is, folks that are not pro-Israel, right?
Yes.
And hey.
Yeah, they've not won hearts and minds. We agree on that.
Oh, no. I think, I go to schools and I talk to kids. First thing I ask is, who do you watch? Used to be Charlie Kirk. Who is it now? Really? What's your position with Israel? Oh, boom. I mean, it's like 0 to anger towards Israel. So guess what that means? Whatever the propaganda was, correct or not, it worked for those that are anti-Israel.
But guess what's
They've
scary?
made a lot of
But
progress.
guess what's scary?
What's
when
that?
the pro-Israel side hear you say that, when they see the numbers of people watching Candace Owens or Tucker Carlson or Nick Fuentes, God help us, when they hear that, they don't go, shit, we need to work harder to win hearts and minds. What they say is, we need to crack down on democracy and free speech because that's the only way we stay in power. That is why Peter Beinart, my good friend who used to be a hardcore Zionist, now a liberal.
That works anymore.
Peter makes the point that you're going to see a lot of Zionist groups in this country allying with the right. Traditionally, American Jewish groups have been
ADL, all
pro-Democrat,
those guys.
liberal.
Yeah.
But now they're allying with Trump and MAGA.
It's weird. We talked about this before. I find this to be a very strange phenomenon. And, like, you know, it's something to think about of people of the right-wing persuasion. Like, what is it that about the politics of all of this that makes them want to side, Zionists want to side or find protection with right-wing politics? Like, traditionally, I would have just thought that they would have been liberal-leaning or left-wing for pure survival instinct and purpose. Watch who they watch and find out, LOL. Yeah.
Because they see a way of suppressing speech and joining with authoritarian forces because they can't win the argument fair and square.
I think that's a mistake.
It is a mistake.
But
that's what they're doing. Jonathan,
I understand that. But what I'm saying to you is it's very important to win over the kids. Very important to win over kids. And when I see China, Qatar putting that kind of money in schools, you know, their long-term thinking is let's win these kids over and then let's see what happens. So I don't think Israel is winning when it comes down to winning over.
Did you see the Jerusalem Post conference in New York this week?
No.
They hosted a conference that ties in with the Israel Day crazy parade. They had Ronald Lauder, the Estee Lauder guy, the billionaire, giving a speech. His son-in-law is the Federal Reserve guy, Kevin Warshie. I can't remember his name.
Is he Jewish? He's Jewish?
Ronald Lauder is a very leading figure in the American Jewish community, big supporter of Israel. He gave a speech at Jerusalem Post conference, and in that speech,
there you go.
He said that Mossad and Shin Bet, the Israeli intelligence, domestic and foreign intelligence, should be working hard to get American kids to support Israel, influence operations. Openly called for it in a speech. There's a clip doing that. It's insane, right? So when you're talking about, this is what I'm saying to you, it's not that they don't know what's happening, but their solutions are so batshit crazy.
Go back to that story.
And so authoritarian.
Israel is losing the information war.
So they get it. They agree with you and me.
Yeah.
But their solutions are scary as shit. They're authoritarian.
It's not going to work today, though.
I hope it doesn't work.
You know why it's not going to work today? You know why it's not going to work today? Why is it not going to work? Are you with MSNBC today?
No.
Okay, where are you at?
I'm independent.
What can you talk about?
Anything I want.
Anything you want.
Yeah.
As long as you don't say something crazy that you get a strike on YouTube, you're
Yeah,
good
but
to
that's
go.
the thing, right? Look at TikTok. When Mitt Romney had Anthony Blinken on stage, do you remember that famous conversation a couple of years back? And he said, everyone's like, oh, they're going after TikTok because of China, because of China, because of China. And Mitt Romney just sits with Blinken and says, every time I go on TikTok, you see 6 times, 7 times as many pro-Palestinian posts as pro-Israel posts. We got to do something about that. Blinken's nodding. I'm like, Mitt, you're not supposed to say that out loud. You're supposed to say that in a smoke-filled room. He said it on stage, right? He made it clear that the TikTok, taken over TikTok by the Ellisons and co. was always about Israel more than it was about China. And that does worry me because you could say, oh, well, I wonder today if, God forbid, the genocide restarted today at the level it did in October 2023 after the horrific massacre on October 7th, what would we see on our social media screens today? I think you'd see much less than you saw in October, November, December of 2023.
So if
Well, I don't know, man. He's got a point there. Look, it is definitely about fucking China. Let's be honest. Like, China has way too much influence through TikTok. And for the surveillance capitalists, they have a form of architecture and getting to the populations of the world that, like, the Americans just can't stomach. Like the architecture of TikTok is just too powerful. Like, and traditional social media has suffered. Like, YouTube has been able to withstand a lot, I think, compared to something like Facebook or Instagram. And it's been able to weather the storm because it, like, has a dominance over longer form content. So, like, it has shorts, but shorts is, like, basically people copying TikTok content onto shorts, basically. But, like, yeah, the space of, like, more direct communications is TikTok all the way. And so, like, is it about China? Is it about Israel? Who the fuck knows? Is it about controlling the means of production, though? Like, controlling an actual organization that is able to help manufacture consent? 100%. So, like, is it today about taking that power off China? And then tomorrow it's about making sure that they control the conversation, so people don't get too upset over what Israel is doing. Like, yeah, maybe both of those things, actually. But, like, it really is control over the asset itself. The asset is TikTok. And, like, China's not stupid. Like, it doesn't want to lose any influence in that sphere either. So if America wants to cut it down and, like, they only have a 20% stake and they have to hand over how TikTok works to the Americans, so the Americans can try and reverse engineer TikTok to some degree. It's really about control, I would say, like, control over those means of production. And, like, the funny thing about it is, like, they let, from our research anyway, like, they let China maintain, like, 20% control over ByteDance because, like, the Americans don't know how to use TikTok. They don't know how the algorithm works. Like, China developed that architecture. And in order for TikTok to not fall off and die in a hole, like similar American-led social media like Instagram and Facebook and stuff like that, for it not to die and become irrelevant, they kept the Chinese on to work the technology for them. So, like, China now just runs TikTok on behalf of American censors, let's say. So it's just about control over that, yeah, very, very vital infrastructure. Mehdi has a channel named Novara Media. Mehdi controls Novara Media. Get fucked. Very interesting. Very interesting. Okay, there's your English connection there. It does not make Israel any more authoritarian than any other country. Next point, Mehdi. PBD won't say that, though. What doesn't make them, like, people, like, clamping down on people saying bad things about Israel? Like, it doesn't make them any more authoritarian than the next country that does that. But it's, like, still authoritarian. It's just any more authoritarian. Without walls, the world would be nakedly vulnerable and exposed. The lifeline to trade all, the mighty wall. What did I miss? What's a wall? Look, this has been entertaining, but, like, I'm I'm going to leave it there on this one. Well, the control that affects your life, spy and knowing everything about you. Yes, but like they've left. This is the funny thing about the whole like TikTok is spying on you. Let's stop TikTok. Like they didn't stop the Chinese from having a stake in ByteDance or running it. So like if they really worried about China spying, then cut China off from TikTok. But no, they actually need China because they know how important TikTok is in controlling public opinion, and so they just want the reins to that. They don't care about Chinese spying exactly because they still allow China to have control over TikTok to a large degree. Oh, I mean big countries, all big countries. Yeah, sorry, spy and know everything about you. Yeah, got it. And getting the funds to have weapons to take you out. All right, there's one other thing that I wanted to watch today, and this is something that I'm pretty sure Bandsaw banned it. You put this in the chat like a few days ago. Like last week. It's like How the War on Terror Created the Age of Trump, and it's by what's his name? By Chris Hedges. So I want to have a look at this. It's a tool used for spinning yarn, thread, etc. Ah, okay, cool. Very interesting. Yeah, it's less authoritarian than ever. Even the laws we've passed recently. In fact, it disproves his point of Israel's control, the speed our social media and other hate speech laws passed. Showtime. Yeah, I think this is quite an interesting discussion. And they speak about like fascism here in relation to like how like the historically the war on terror kind of evolved. And like as the war on terror has evolved, it has produced like a new political climate in the West, in the US specifically, and like kind of how that can evolve into a form of fascism. So this one's for all the people that like to be fascist analysts out there. I'm looking at you, Ravy, and you, Jag, if you're still around. I thought this was an interesting discussion in that vein, and like gives us more of a understanding on how to like frame your thoughts on what fascism is, because like it does seem like everybody wants to talk about like fascism arising and calling each other fascists and all that sort of stuff. I think it's important to have like real world examples of how that might like fascism might manifest itself and in what form it will come along, because it's like not until after the fact that you know what's going on, right? At the time you don't really know what to point at, and then like it all becomes quite clear afterwards. 2020. What is it? Hindsight is 2020. This is not your textbook identification of fascism, and not the common. Is this not your textbook identification of fascism, and not the common cultural way? Have you watched this? Oh, sorry. This is your textbook identification of fascism, and not the common cultural way. Yeah. Have you watched this piece? Because like it might give you some interesting kind of answers to that, I would say. But yeah, Chris Hedges, very interesting guy. I think Spandonk, you don't like Chris Hedges. I can't remember why. I think it's something to do with like being, maybe something to do with Bosnia, maybe. You don't like him about? I'm not sure. No, I haven't, but I know how it's used culturally. Yeah, okay. Let's have a look. And we'll stop and chat as we go along.
And Afghanistan learns whose ideology, right-wing extremists tattooed on his body. Group, although a has been in the interrogates the consequences for veterans for their involvement in the incursion are a signal that the marriage between the right-wing extremists and the military has ominous consequences domestically. Matt Kennard investigates the infusion of the extreme right into the military and its consequences in his book, Irregular Army. Matt is an investigative journalist and co-founder of Declassified UK.
Oh, maybe someone else? Someone criticized his positions, I'm pretty sure, on on the Balkans, I think. Hedges at least gets in trenches, unlike most so-called journals. Yeah, fair enough. Okay.
a news outlet covering British national security issues. He worked as a staff writer for the Financial Times. He is also the author of The Racket, which documents how the U.S. rigs the global economy for the benefit of its elite. Matt, in the book, you interview several of these neo-Nazi hard-right veterans. I just want to begin by asking you about one of the most fascinating points that I found in those interviews, and that's their sense of betrayal, their sense of abandonment.
Yeah, I mean, but many of them who were sent off to...
Okay, so like just for context, like in his introduction there, he's basically saying like this guy's gone around and he's interviewed people, but it's like making the case in his book that like right-wing, neo-Nazi really, like Nazi, like fascist groups in the Americas, like criminals, like people associated with like hardcore, like right-wing activity, have been accepted into the military in the US, even though like there should be strong regulations against like kind of criminal activity or people that are outlawed and banned like from getting into the US. The US Army should be kind of like an impartial organization, not filled with like sex, basically, like political sex, that like, you know, take over the function of the military. But like his argument is that like it has been highly politicized for a long time, the American military, and infiltrated by fascists. And like obviously his big point or concern is like Pete Hegseth and the Secretary of War. Like he's someone who openly has like kind of crusader tattoos and stuff on him, and he speaks openly about America being involved in like a holy war and like, you know, needs to eradicate their enemies, and talks about the end times and all that sort of stuff. And so like this, I think the case that this guy makes largely is that in like all the other ways that America might be moving towards fascism or something like that, the military is a very unique, very interesting, case study, because it is very like the right wing kind of like hard right or fascist kind of stuff is heavily ingrained into American military culture now. And so like it just needs somebody to kind of flip the switch, and like a big portion of the American armed forces will be ready to side with some kind of dictator figure or fascist style leader who wants to, you know, seize power, if you know what I mean. Oh, I know about this, LOL. Yeah. All right. Let's do this.
Iraq and Afghanistan did not believe in the war on terror.
That's their sense of betrayal, their sense of abandonment.
Yeah, I mean, but many of them who were sent off to Iraq and Afghanistan did not believe in the war on terror. That was one of the interesting takeaways from doing all those interviews, because I came into it thinking, well, this is a martial ideology that, and it's a country full of brown people. So if you send racists there, they want to go and kill people. But and of course they did kill people, but many of them said the reason they signed up and went out to the Middle East was because they wanted to get training courtesy of the US taxpayer, and bring that training back to the United States for what they call RAHOA, which is racial holy war, which is this idea that America will descend into a civil war with all the races pitted against each other, which will end with the white supremacist regime in Washington. And they there has been many cases of veterans actually plotting and carrying out domestic attacks who were trained in Iraq and Afghanistan. So it was a hugely eye-opening experience. It's also interesting how open they were about their experiences, because the other thing is you would think that they would want to keep it quiet. But the story that they were telling was that they were not only welcomed, they were promoted because of their ideology while in Iraq, particularly. Forrest Fogarty, who is one of the neo-Nazis I interviewed, I went down to Tampa, Florida to interview him and ended up going to the zoo with him and his kids, actually. But he was talking about how his commander would say to him, I like the fact you're a Nazi. And he said that he sent him on the hardest missions, and liked the fact that he saw him as a warrior. Now, obviously, that's him saying that. I can't say that it's true, but that was an experience I got from many of the neo-Nazi veterans I talked to, that they were welcomed and treated in a way that was like, well, it's good to have you in here, boys. So it's a hugely worrying thing for every American, because you have to remember that there's 2 million veterans of the war on terror in the United States now, and that includes thousands of these neo-Nazi white supremacists, tens of thousands.
Did you just say 2 million veterans of the war on terror? Is that what he just said?
Thing for every American, because you have to remember that there's 2 million veterans of the war on terror in the United States now.
That's fucking mental. They sent 2 million people to serve. like over like what various operations, let's say, not wars, but like operations, as Marco Rubio likes to say, over the expanse of like what from Iraq 1.0, Iraq 2.0, like Gulf Wars, Afghanistan. That's a fuckload of people, man. God damn. That's crazy. And like, let's just say a fraction of them, let's like be really conservative, like 10% of those people have like the tendencies that he's talking about here, towards kind of like a, what did he call it? A Rahowa or something? A race war kind of view on American politics. Maybe they're not like full-blown neo-Nazis, but they believe in like, I don't know, at least Western supremacy and Christian supremacy. And they want to make sure that they bring in I don't know, like help bring in a Western utopia, let's say, for people with Western values only in the US. That's like what, 200,000 people ready to, like with military training, ready to bring on the Western utopia, if you know what I mean. Very interesting.
And that includes thousands of these neo-Nazi white supremacists, tens of thousands of gang members, which is another group which were enfranchised by the war on terror. And they're not coming home to become priests. They're coming home to either see out their ideological convictions in the form of a racial holy war, or in the case of gangs, to use their resources and their training to kill other members of other gangs to help the drug trafficking regime. And the thing is, this is hard to. This is all bubbled under the surface, so it's not often that it comes out to the fore. Of course, it does at certain points, like in 1995 with Timothy McVeigh with the Oklahoma City bombing. That was a major attack that was completely changed America in many ways. But he was a veteran of the first Gulf War. But there hasn't been an attack by one of these veterans of that scale. But on a lower level, if you look at local news reports from local American newspapers, there's criminal activity happening all the time involving the veteran community. Neo-Nazis, white supremacists who served, gang members, criminals who got in through what was called the moral waiver program, where they allowed felons and people guilty of serious misdemeanors who previously wouldn't have got in to serve. So it's a major issue in the United States, but you wouldn't know it if you read the media. The other important point, and I'll end here, is we kind of are aware of what's happening in the United States because of the media. The media covers it on the local level, and law enforcement. You can't get away with killing people and plotting terrorist attacks in the United States. But what were they doing in Iraq and Afghanistan? We don't know a lot of the stuff that they were doing, because nearly every atrocity that was committed in Iraq and Afghanistan by the US military was denied and covered up until it got to the point that the US military couldn't do it, and that's their ethos. I mean, I remember in the book we reference actually an article you wrote with Layla Al-Arian about the conduct of the US troops and about how carefree they were with just shooting civilians and shooting anyone on sight. And there was one case just specifically to link this policy with atrocities that were carried out. There was a famous or infamous massacre in 2006 called the Mahmoudiya massacre, where a group of American soldiers went to a house south of Baghdad.
What the fuck he's talking like it's a majority? The majority of vets have PTSD and off themselves, not joining gangs or becoming radicalized. I think he's actually saying these were people that were in gangs and radicalized prior to joining. And then, like, there's both. And then there's people that have joined gangs and been radicalized afterwards. And even if it is a tiny portion, like of people that, what did he say? They had a moral waiver to be allowed into the forces and stuff like that. It's still pretty fucking crazy. Gangs in the military is a common thing. Yeah.
Dad separated a 14-year-old girl from her family, and then killed the dad and the sisters, went into the other room, and they all raped her, and then killed her, and then burnt the whole house down. Now, this was a crime that was covered, that the soldiers said this was the work of insurgents, which is why they burnt the house down. That was a lie that was accepted by the US military for a while, until there was a soldier that had a crisis of conscience who revealed what had actually happened. And who was the leader of that massacre? A guy called Stephen D. Green, and he'd got into the US military during the war on terror through the moral waiver program. He had convictions for stuff that would previously have not allowed him to serve. So that's just a taste of what impact this had on the occupied population. So it's a two-front problem. And also, as you mentioned in your intro, this is now so a lot of the research I was doing on these soldiers that were getting in with swastikas and SS bolts and other things, we've now got a situation where it's institutionalized. You mentioned Pete Hegseth. This is a guy that has Jerusalem cross tattooed on his chest, which is neo-Crusader imagery. He's got the word kafir tattooed on his arm in Arabic, which is just a statement to say that he sees Islam as a threat and a civilization.
Is it kafir or is it kafar? Kafar is the word for infidel.
Well, yeah, maybe I mispronounced it. Yeah, it's kafir. It's the Arabic term.
Infidel. It's the Arabic word for infidel.
So he's proudly saying I'm an infidel, and then you see how he talks about the attack on Iran in Crusader terms, So it's like that we've come full circle, that these people that we were trying to expose what was happening during the war on terror, and the US military was trying to keep it quiet, is now become institutionalized, and a head guy is one of these soldiers or veterans, because obviously Hegseth served in Iraq and Afghanistan. Interestingly as well, it's been reported that in 2021 he was not allowed to even serve at the inauguration of Joe Biden because one of his fellow soldiers flagged the extremist tattoos he's got. So when you're talking about the most powerful military in the history of the world, and it's run by this extremist who, as you said, is now basically advertising the fact that there's complete impunity for neo-Nazis, white supremacists, it's hugely worrying for the world and the American population, because these people do not serve the Constitution of the United States. They're not in it for any other reason than to get training to start their own war back home.
That's a pretty scary prospect. I know there's some massive contention in the chat here about like this guy's legitimacy, but like let's just theorize on that one for a second. That like you have Pete Hegseth, who is like pretty race war-y, pretty like holy war-y, right? Is this new to you? Are you talking to me specifically, or is that like a general thing? That's the connection. It's about disparaging Hegseth. It's not even hard. Hegseth is a piece of shit. But like let's just theorize on that. Like putting a piece of shit, or like someone who's like openly into the whole like, like the race and religious war kind of thing, in charge of like the most powerful military the world has ever seen, like all that sort of stuff. Like like anyone who's done business and economics 101, like in business management, it's all like it all starts from the head. Like the CEO is king, and like the culture for the entire organization is set by those at the top. And so like if you have people that are in charge and like they're setting the culture for the entire organization, like that's a massive thing. And so if you have someone like Crusader Pete setting the tone for the US military, like that is going to have flow-on effects for like how the American military is run, and like the whole like serving with impunity issue. And like he said multiple times, he's not going on witch hunts against people that support him and people that love their country and all that sort of stuff. Bit of coping in the chat, I see. Yeah, I'm coping. Brother can't even make a valid argument. Well, you might have to read his book, Spandonk, and then figure out what it is if he's not convincing with his words. But like, is this new to me, all of this? Like, I'm not down with warrior culture stuff. Like, I've got like one person in my family that has served, and like they're pretty kind of graphic about their descriptions of what the usual soldier is like, grunts as they have described them, and like what their affiliations are like and what their culture is generally. And like Hegseth is talked about like similar stuff, I guess, in terms of bearded guys, beardos, and tatted up guys, and all that sort of type of stuff. But like, yeah, I'm aware of the type of culture that is inside the military. But again, like that's one thing, but then having like, yeah, the head of the entire organization, the entirety of the armed forces, with very particular political outlook, like one so far as a religious war outlook, it is a pretty scary time to be alive. If he's got literature, I'm down to read. Well, apparently this is what this is about. He's written a book on this, where he goes out and he like interviews neo-Nazis and stuff like that and talks to them about what they're up to. I'm not even saying it's not a thing, It's just not how most of the military operates. It's an exaggeration. I don't know if he has said that though. Has he actually said this is how most of the military operates? I think he's mentioned that like there is a portion that engage in this behavior or in these practices, and like it's enough. I'm not sure if he actually said that or not though. Like the actual individuals of race superiority and on a serious level where people in power make decisions to make ideologies a reality, training is a tool to use to achieve these goals. Yeah. But like still, like if you're looking at numbers like 2 million people, and even like let's say really like let's be really, really conservative. It's like 1% of people hold this ideology. Like that's a what, 20,000 people. That's a lot of people who are willing to potentially act on their convictions, their political ideology. Some scary shit. The SEALs aren't going to start spray painting a red cross on their plate carriers like they did with the Punisher skull during the GWAT.
In the United States, and Hegseth said in his confirmation hearing, actually, we're not going to focus on extremist activities now because this is a political witch hunt by liberals. Which is a green light to say sign up. You're welcome in the US military now. Alongside, obviously, he said we're not going to deal with these stupid rules of engagement again, which is a advert to say to his soldiers, you can commit war crimes with impunity. So, but the point of the book, I think, is to show how the war on terror led to Trump. Trump is presented by the Democrats and so-called moderate Republicans as this massive outlier, but actually
I like that. I think that's interesting. I wonder if that's true. I can't remember Hegseth's introduction exactly in that level of detail. We've heard a few Hegseth speeches over the time, but like that one specifically. Did Hegseth say at his inauguration or any significant speeches that he has made with regards to his position and the way that he will be conducting himself, that he's going to stop a witch hunt against extremism within the armed forces or something similar? Sources, please. 4IS in the house. I'm back, baby. What I miss? Oh, we're going through a Chris Hedges special at the moment, where like he's interviewing someone who's written a book about, I guess the integration of Nazism or like fascism into the American armed forces, and like he's gone around interviewing like neo-Nazis and people that have served, and like he does a bit of a case study on Pete Hegseth and stuff. It's interesting, and it's like one of those views on how, you know, fascism is coming to America and stuff like that. I'm not aware of Pete Hegseth using that exact word, witch hunt against extremism, in a major inaugural speech, has repeatedly argued that the Pentagon efforts to identify extremism in the ranks were politically motivated and harmful to morale. The clearest evidence comes from his January 25 Senate confirmation hearing. So things like focusing on extremism have created a climate inside our ranks that feel political when it hasn't ever been political. Those are the types of things that are going to change. Things like focusing on extremism have created a climate inside our ranks that feel political when it hasn't ever been political. That statement was significant because it was interpreted by military analysts and anti-extremism researchers as a signal to the Pentagon's post-January 6 efforts to monitor and counter extremist activity within the armed forces could be reduced or eliminated. NPR reported at the time that Hegseth had signaled he may halt efforts to fight extremism in the military. Okay. So there's some basis to this interpretation, anyway. America in the past has at least pretended they participated in diplomacy. Now they don't even have a legitimate diplomatic negotiator nor participate in any lines of diplomatic trust. All right, back to it.
Conditions for Trump were all created during the war on terror. So the complete evisceration of the US military and its regulations is one part of that. What was called the imperial presidency, which was put in place by Dick Cheney when he concentrated so much power in the executive. These are all things that were in place and have been taken advantage of by Trump. And Trump said, look at what Trump's doing now. So, like from the UK, sometimes I look at the US and it's easy to forget that the US even has a legislative branch. Because if you look at the attack on Venezuela, Iran, it's not even talked about that they should be voted on. You barely hear about the legislative branch, and that is a product of the war on terror as well, plus all the repressive powers that were enshrined by the Patriot Act and plenty of other legislation. So it's a story that I think that people don't talk about enough. Trump is not connected to the war on terror. There's also, of course, the historical precedent for fascism taking off after a major war. So fascism really began in the early 20th century post the First World War in Italy. And Mussolini took advantage of a massive reservoir of disaffected and disillusioned soldiers. And a lot of his foot soldiers were those troops. And Italy won the First World War, but they didn't make territorial gains, or at least the gains that their soldiers fought, that their sacrifices should have engendered. And he took massive advantage of that. Same with Hitler later on. Hitler, a veteran of the First World War, and used, in what is very well known now, about the punitive action of the Treaty of Versailles, the humiliation of Germany, and all this reservoir of troops who were disaffected with the First World War to really become the foot soldiers of the rise of Nazism. And I do think there is a parallel with Trump, because Trump is using so much of the ideology and so much of the personnel of the war on terror, the disaffected troops, to say. I mean, if you look at his pitch for when he was first elected, and he still does it, he says we're not going to do nation building, we're not going to waste all this money abroad on wars. Of course, it was all rubbish, and we know that. But he used that pitch to get into power. And of course, if the war on terror was a bipartisan disaster and bipartisan crime, the Democrats were as guilty as the Republicans. They carried on all the Bush policies, plus they supported all the Bush policies when he was in the White House. So that creates the conditions for a demagogue, an outsider, to say, well, look, Washington's a corrupt and bunk, and I'm going to come in and sort it all out, drain the swamp, as he said. So I think that we really need to understand the current moment in America from the point of view of the war on terror and what it did to American society. And a very, very clear window into that is the US military, because the US military is probably the most important institution in America. You know, half the congressional budget goes on it. According to some estimates, 1.4 trillion a year. It's vaunted by all political sides.
I wonder if that's true. That's pretty crazy if that's true. How much of the congressional budget each year is spent on military spending in the US? Federal budget, the whole budget in 2025, the government spent about 7 trillion in total. National defense was 916 billion, roughly 13% of the federal. So out of $100, the government spent about 13 on defense. The remaining 87 was spent on Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, interest, debt, veteran programs, education, congressional discretional spending. This is where the confusion comes from. Congress only votes annually on the discretional portion of the budget. Programs like Social Security, Medicare are largely funded automatically under existing law and classified mandatory spending. Within discretionary budget, defense accounts for 40 to 50% of spending. Okay, interesting. That's a big difference. half of the budget goes to the military, they're usually referring to discretionary budget, not the entire federal budget. Okay. So the entire thing, Social Security gets 22.5%, Medicare gets 14%, National Defense gets 13%. Interest on the debt. Wow. Okay, so discretional spending. It's an important side note there.
And if you have this kind of degradation of the fighting force, what impact does that? That it's impossible for that not to percolate out into wider society, and it has. And it's extremely worrying for Americans.
Talk about that disaffection. Give us a kind of, you've spent a lot of time with these people, a psychological profile of these extremists.
Well, it's not just the extremists, by the way. Like, a major part of this story and mix, this toxic mix that has developed during the war on terror, was because of post-traumatic stress disorder, right? Which is many US soldiers and veterans have. And they were saying up to 30%. And actually in the book, I contrasted that with other places like the UK and the UK military. And for some reason, which I don't really understand, the US military has much higher rates of PTSD than any other comparable military. I think it's like 30% according to some estimates. In the UK, it was like 4 or 5. And then
I reckon it's because of the spend that is attached to that as well. Like all the medicine, all the medical assistance that goes along with PTSD. Big business. And it'd be big business for Americans as well. For Big Pharma. The non-discretionary spending is what will sink America. They will never grow to outpace their debt, no matter how many straits Trump closes.
They're not treated. So you have this weird psychological cognitive dissonance for these soldiers because they read the media, they look at their politicians, and they always talk about how wonderful these people are defending our freedom. They're the best of America, and blah blah blah. So they're vaunted as heroes, and they come back, and they're treated like dirt. Effectively, they're not given the treatment they need. They're sent back into combat because the other thing, when they couldn't recruit enough troops, it wasn't just getting rid of regulations. They also lengthened tours.
Yeah, he's starting to talk about it now. Spendonk, yes.
And shorten the time between tours, and you can't do that. The reason they have that system and the lengths they had was because you can't do that without breaking soldiers' brains. So many soldiers were broken by that, and then they'd give them prescription drugs to try and keep them on a level where they could keep fighting. So there's huge amounts of disaffection. So, and soldiers are saying, well, if I've done all this, if I'm being vaunted as a hero, why am I treated like dirt? Why am I homeless? Why can't I get treatment for the PTSD? And again, so many of them turned towards Trump because the rhetoric was sweet. He said, the corrupt Washington consensus hasn't looked after our troops, blah, 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 blah. So, again, the failure of the Trump administration to do anything for them, in fact, he's probably been worse, has added to it all. And I think we're going to see this play out in America over the next decades, because this is not, as I mentioned, Timothy McVeigh, obviously he was a veteran of the first Gulf War. That took 5 years, but you're talking about way more soldiers with his kind of ideology that served, and actually the FBI has stopped a bunch of different attacks that were planned by neo-Nazi veterans and active duty, actually, and all it takes is one of those investigations or one of those plots to not get found out, and then you're talking about dozens or hundreds of Americans dead. So this is something we're going to see play out, and they don't want to talk about it. It's massive cover-up has been happening all the way through. So for the book, the media barely covered it because it contradicted the fairy tale narrative of the war on terror, because you can't really say that you're taking...
I find this incredibly fascinating. He's got good points about how all militaries operate, even if I don't agree on why. Fair enough. Also, Trump just approved, what's that, Ibogaine for PTSD?
Democracy and freedom to somewhere if you're sending neo-Nazis to do it. But the other point is the institutions, something we're going to see play out, and they don't want to talk about it. It's massive cover-up has been happening all the way through. So for the book, the media barely covered it because it contradicted the fairy tale narrative of the war on terror, because you can't really say that you're taking democracy and freedom to somewhere if you're sending neo-Nazis to do it. But the other point is the institutions themselves were trying to cover it up. So whistleblowers was the only way we kind of got information about this. And I interviewed a whistleblower called Jeffrey Stolson who signed up to serve and served in Iraq, and he had, and these pictures are in the book. He took photos of all the gang graffiti that was up, Sir 13, Crips, Bloods, all over the blast walls around Baghdad and other cities in Iraq, and his treatment by the US military is actually salutary. It's like he was effectively persecuted, and his life was ruined, and he eventually had to leave the US military, and that's because they wanted to cover it up. His information wasn't used because they didn't want to solve the problem, because they couldn't slow down. So it is a massive cover up that is going to get exposed eventually. But and the other point is, again, this is just to talk about why it doesn't reach the mainstream, is so many of our discourse is basically is a partisan discourse, right? So if this book had presented this as a Bush administration phenomenon and nothing to do with Obama, then the sort of Democrat aligned media would have got behind it, and it would have given them a nice ideological tool to beat their enemies. But it wasn't like that. Obama carried on all the same policies. He carried on all the not enforcing the regulations and stuff like that. So it's
called continuity of agenda. Hey, Brian would be happy if he heard about this. Hey, what? They continue, each president continues in the background despite all the culture war nonsense. They continue much of the same practices as their predecessors, despite the rhetoric. Oh my God. It's supposed to cure PTSD. And addiction after 48 hours or something. A lot of vets have been using it.
Something that the whole of Washington is responsible for.
Can you describe what that ideology is of these neo-Nazis? Their lay out for us their vision of the race war and what they see happening in the United States.
Yeah, so there's different elements. The white supremacist movement has many different groups and elements. And I'll just say before I carry on that this was a trend that happened after the Vietnam War as well. You saw a massive rise in paramilitary activity and white supremacist activity after the Vietnam War for the reasons I outlined earlier. These disaffected troops came back from a war that they'd sacrificed a lot for and were treated awfully, and they lost the war. So, so there's many different elements running from the Ku Klux Klan, who claim to prefer democratic methods, to neo-Nazi groups who want a neo-Nazi regime in Washington, to what lone wolf potential terrorists actually that operate across the United States. And I actually interviewed a couple of self-described lone wolf individual white supremacist individuals, one who's now in prison because he was planning an attack, and yeah, it's basically about trying to overthrow the government. And how do we do that? How do we it's called accelerationism. You commit an attack, you create a crisis, and in that crisis you can cleave off the white population and say, well, we need to overthrow the whole government. We're not protected. The government wants to kill us. There's a very paranoid culture that
I think this is the form of acceleration that you have talked about before, 4AS, if you've been here. Because we talked in a podcast recently, we talked about accelerationism in relation to capitalism and unleashing any control over capital, so it can just accelerate and develop technology at a rapid pace, unrestricted by anyone, any regulation, any market, any system. So it can just go crazy. But there's political acceleration, which sounds like anarchy. And anarchy or anarchists traditionally in politics 100 years ago, prior to that, were the type of people who would orchestrate events like political crises, assassinations, bombings, whatever, to destabilize the political system. And in the vacuum, in the chaos, people would rise and a new political party would form, or a new political system would form. And yeah, they will have control after the chaos, but it also gets public opinion. They'll do something almost like a false flag as well. They'll stage an event that looks like, I don't know, an event that was orchestrated by some Islamic terrorist group or something like that. And they'll actually allow them to help them get away with such said crime or said terrorist act, to get everyone to be see, look, they really are fucking crazy. And then everybody rises up against, in the name of defending Western civilization against replacement and all that sort of stuff. Shoot someone's ear off, eh? Ear off is a little bit rich there, by slicing the side of somebody's face. But yes, I know what you're talking about. Very interesting. Not a fan of his taste in poetry. The Marwan Mokul quote is cringe as I don't know. Is that the thing in the background there that you're talking about? Interesting. I'll take your word for it. I haven't read it.
The central government wants to kill everyone and keep them suppressed. So that's basically it. I mean, and there's no. When I was talking to the neo-Nazis, I mean, that is what they are. They subscribe to Hitler's ideology, which is that the Jews run the world. They subscribe to something called Zog, which is Zionist occupied government, which is that the Jews run the whole government. They believe, that they have equal animosity to black people. So when I was interviewing Forrest Fogarty, the veteran in this bar in Tampa, he was sitting across from me and we were having a beer, and he was in his wife beater vest just fulminating about Jews and black people, and it was quite hairy because I looked like his friend. So I was just, and he was talking about how often he gets into fights. So I was just like, okay, well, let's just tone it down a little bit or bring the volume down. But they're completely unashamed, and it's quite interesting because you don't, the cleverer fascists cover up the more extreme parts of their ideology or present themselves as a bit more palatable to the mainstream, whereas these guys don't. They see themselves as street fighters. And he was a member of a gang called the Hammerskin Nation, which according to the ADL is the most violent skinhead group in the United States. And again, he was saying that he had fellow members who were serving in the US military.
I don't know if I want this on my search history, but let's do this. What do you call it? Hammerskin Nation, was it? Hammerskins, also known as Hammerskin Nation, is one of the most violent and best organized neo-Nazi skinhead groups in the world, formed in Dallas. And so their symbols are hammers, right? Interesting. I wonder what like American veterans from World War II would think about these people. Like honestly, that's one contradiction that I can never get over, is like America has like defined itself largely or for a long time like as like, the nation that saved the world from fascism. And like, wow. Oh, in order to write poetry, I must listen to the birds and listen to the birds' warplanes. And to listen to the birds' warplanes must be quiet. Poetry, apparently. Fair enough. Like you don't like that line, or you don't like the person who wrote the line, Spandong? Like it's an unfortunate line. Interesting though. White Power Music, their primary tool for recruitment revenue is the promotion of hate rock. Hate rock. History of violence. Members adhere to extreme accelerationist and anti-Semitic beliefs. The group has been documented history of violence and numerous members convicted of harassing, beating, and murdering minorities. Most common logo consists of 2 crossed hammers and a cogwheel. Yeah, right. I wonder what that's about. Interesting. All right.
So, and this is why I'm saying, so it's linked to the US military, right? So if you have an accelerationist agenda where
I'm just not a fan. I wouldn't call it poetry. It is sad, but like, yeah. Oh, okay, fair enough. It's just shit poetry. No, the capitalists bought fascism. Yeah. Yeah, it's an interesting point, isn't it? Yeah. Oh, they just took over. Rebranded. But where's the symbolism? Where's the analogies and metaphors and rhyme scheme or artistic structure? Like everything we'd equate with poetry. Got it. Okay. It's a poetry critique. Okay.
You want to overthrow the US government, but you need to create the conditions for a race war, and you do that through terrorist attacks. You need training. You need to be able to fight that war that presages the bigger war. So it makes total sense that they would see the US military as a good place to go, and that is why regulations are in place. or have been in place, and that is why it's such a criminal thing that the U.S. government and the Bush administration and the following Obama administration made it so easy for them to serve. And you're going to see it play out, as I say. And so, I mean, these people want we talk about the Holocaust, and they think it was a good thing, and that's what needs to do. We need concentration camps in the United States, that kind of thing. It's the most extreme you can get, really.
Is Hegseth, do you think this describes Hegseth's worldview?
I don't know privately. It could do. I mean, publicly, as I said, he's one of these people that's cleverer with how he presents his ideology. I believe he believes in end times. I mean, he's a Christian nationalist, isn't he? He believes in that whole end times Armageddon idea, that there'll be a conflagration of huge proportions in the Middle East, and then he'll be raptured up to heaven, and Christians will be raptured up to heaven with Jesus Christ, or Jesus Christ will come down. So I believe that, and I believe that is a driver of maybe the main driver of policy.
Do they really believe that? Like in this era, they believe that, like someone like Hedges actually believes that if they win like the race war, the holy war, like Jesus is just gonna like come down from heaven and like, you know, take them away, kind of thing. Like these people would think that, like, you know, something like a communist utopia is mental. And like you'd have to be on some type of drug to think that like humans on Earth can work together or like live in a community in like a modern setting and be able to just figure things out. So there's no class differences. There's no like, you know, economic inequalities. There's still plenty of room for all the other inequalities out there, but like economic inequalities can be eradicated, let's say. Like that's fucking crazy stuff. But like, you know, Jesus coming down and like taking away all the pure of heart after like they've finished with their fucking holy war, like that's completely normal. That's completely normal, absolutely acceptable stuff here. I mean, Hegseth is a lunatic. He's right there. But like, does he actually believe it, or is he just using rhetoric to like win over the hearts and minds of people? The rhetoric about the holy wars he's had, and the tats, he's spot on there. Yeah. But we monetized this? Like, what do you mean we monetized this? Exactly. Roxy's. Like, what did we monetize? Like, we monetized the holy war? Or like this like Christian nationalism stuff? This thing here. We are here. We are here, like looking at this, or like the current state of affairs. I'm camera worthy. Okay. I'm sure you are. Oh, like the idea of being camera worthy has been monetized. But do you care? I don't know. Like, this is too cryptic for me. Can you just like maybe get to the point here, and I'll be able to answer your questions better.
You just have to listen to him to believe that, and obviously that's linked to racism. And like you say, he's actually, according to some analysts, I mean, he's purged the Pentagon, and he hasn't explicitly said he's purging black people, but it's by coincidence been mainly black people that have been purged from the Pentagon. So there's, I believe that, he's a...
Mr. You're forgetting about the part before Jesus descends, that all the Jewish folk all move to Izzy, where they convert to Christianity or die. Like, is that actually a thing, or are you just being a smart ass? Like, that's probably part of it, right? Racism is easy to throw out. That's the prophecy? Okay. Can we actually be humans? Man, this is really cryptic stuff, Rox is. Like, I must admit. Give me something more to work with here. What are Pete Hegseth's views on the Holy War and some end times moment where him and his chosen people will be entering into heaven, etc., etc.? Very briefly. God cares. Help. Very briefly, there's no evidence that Pete Hegseth actually advocates an end times theology in the sense of trying to bring about Armageddon or believing that the current wars are necessary to trigger a second coming. Claims that he does are usually made by critics rather than based on direct statements. What is well documented, he describes himself as a committed Christian and he promotes strong Christian role in public life. He's been associated with Christian nationalist ideas and thinkers such as Douglas Wilson, uses crusade language, and has defended historical crusades, arguing Western civilization owes a debt to crusaders. His tattoos including Deus Vult, God wills it, a crusader slogan, framed political and cultural conflicts as struggle between competing civilizations. Political and cultural conflicts as struggle between competing civilizations and values, sometimes using a religious language. Okay. As for God's chosen people entering heaven, that's a standard Christian. Yeah. Okay, I'm looking for more speculation than this. What is it that his critiques accuse him of in terms of his religious and holy war rhetoric and what he believes will eventually happen as these type of objectives are achieved? That's why you have white supremacists aligning with the evangelicals, aligning with Zionists, etc., etc., etc. Yeah, I lack a God. You have that. Do I, though? Do I? I'm trying to do walking on air. Okay. If you're asking what critics think Hegseth believes rather than what Hegseth has explicitly stated, the argument usually goes something like this. I love that introduction. That's so good. Critics such as Georgetown scholar Matthew Taylor and the Military Religious Freedom Foundation and various Christian nationalist researchers argue that Hegseth's worldview is not merely patriotic Christianity, but a form of civilizational Christianity. In this interpretation, history is seen as a struggle between Christian civilizations and its enemies, particularly radical Islam and secular liberalism. They point to his book, American Crusade, his defense of the medieval crusades and use of crusader symbolism such as Deus Vult as evidence. The more ambitious version of the critique is that Hegseth is influenced by ideas associated with theologian Douglas Wilson and the broader Christian nationalist movement. Critiques claim that the worldview seeks a gradual re-Christianization of American institutions and society rather than a pluralistic secular state. Where the end times issue comes is an important. Some evangelicals believe wars involving Israel in the Middle East are signs of the approaching return of Christ. Okay, so Middle East. So this is what we've talked about here a lot, right? This idea of like destabilization in the Middle East. Is signs of the approaching return of Christ. Critics worry that Hegseth's rhetoric about crusade, spiritual warfare, and Christian civilization overlaps with those beliefs. However, researchers who have specifically examined Hegseth's church background note that the denomination associated with him is generally post-millennialist, meaning that it does not emphasize Armageddon-style end times prophecy. Instead, it tends to teach that Christianity should gradually transform society before Christ returns. Well, you'll see two different accusations. The apocalyptic accusation that Hegseth is motivated by an Armageddon or holy war mindset in which conflict in the Middle East has prophetic significance. The Christian nationalist accusation that he believes Christians should dominate major institutions and that military power can be used in defense of Christian civilizational project. Interesting. Activate the like button, YouTube. Yes, if you're watching this on YouTube and you haven't already, make sure you activate the like button. Okay.
Subscriber to this, and he is literally one of the soldiers that I was talking to. during the height of the war on terror that we were trying to raise the alarm about, and he's now in control of the whole thing. So it's super, super scary. And it's interesting. I mean, he's obviously got other history as well. He was accused of rape, wasn't he? And he paid off the accuser. There was a report in the New Yorker that he was leading chants of kill all Muslims at one point in his career. So the evidence is there. And I don't understand how the American media, the political culture, the Washington is not more alarmed by this, because if you have someone like that at the top, it just goes all through the institution, and it's quite hard to bring it back after that. And I don't know if Trump subscribes to this stuff, but he's obviously, Hegseth for him is a play to the base, I guess, because he's got these Christian evangelical base that probably think Hegseth is great. But the other thing about Hegseth is, again, he was another one. He made all these speeches about, we're going to stop nation building and we're going to stop going abroad and fighting futile wars. And and then he in power, he's been extolling how great. He said we're going to go everywhere. We've got a dynamic military that has got the gloves off, and we're going to destroy anyone that puts a finger of resistance up to us. And then, of course, the special forces, Delta Force, was sent into Venezuela to kidnap the president. So it's hard to know if he believes anything, or he just gets pushed around by the various forces within the Trump administration. I don't know, but he's an extremely dangerous character who is, if he's not a full-blown neo-Nazi, is definitely close to it. And I think that, the seriousness of it is hard to overstate. The seriousness of it is hard to overstate because, as I say, when you've got a military of this power and this global reach, the carrier battle groups, you've got 800 bases around the world, you've got bombing all these different places without any congressional oversight. How does that end? How does it end? The only good thing for the world is that they're massively incompetent. Like, Hegseth is genuinely quite stupid. I wouldn't trust him to make me a sandwich. But he and so they don't do what they do very well. So they sent in the special forces to get Maduro, but the government in Venezuela is still in place. Iran has been a complete disaster, maybe the biggest foreign policy disaster for generations. They don't know what they're doing. They just know how to smash things up, and they don't have any strategy. So that is a benefit. And I do think it's a sign of and I know you've written a lot about this, but it's a sign of the acceleration of the American empire, because it's ended this decadent phase where it's got no strategy, it's just hubristic and knows it has power, and this military power, it just dwarfs everyone else, and they're going to use it, but they haven't got a strategy for how to use it, and they haven't got a strategy for how to win. And in fact, that's a problem that goes back a long way for the US military, maybe to 1945. Have they won a war since 1945? I'm not sure. And that is a bit different to the British, who obviously were the previous superpower. We were savage in many, many places in the world, but we kind of became experts at counterinsurgency and and putting down liberation movements, and we could stabilize societies, and we were kind of had centuries to kind of hone those skills. But the Americans don't seem to be able to do it. They can't stabilize. They can't action missions. I mean, the other problem for the Americans and Hegseth and Trump is quite hard to even know what the Iran war, what the stated purpose is. That it changed every week. 1 week it was about regime change, then it's about oil, or then it's about opening up the Strait of Hormuz. I don't think many people understand what even that was. Maybe the Trump administration doesn't itself. But
I don't think they even needed a pretext. Like, that was the thing. That's why it's so fucking confusing. And we've spent so much time and energy on this stream trying to figure out what the fuck is going on, and they just change the goalposts all the time. And you have Marco Rubio being questioned the other day, and he was just like, no, we won. We won when we're not in a war. Did we ever say we're in a war? No, it was just an operation, and we won the operation. Who said it was a war? I didn't say it was a war. You said it was a war. There's just so much uncertainty over, shrouded in mystery. And I think that's the entire point is, I think the American empire as a machine, as a beast, was moving towards closing down the Gulf as it suited the Americans' larger interests in terms of moving the petro dollar system into a new gear, getting people onto American oil, shifting dependence, I guess, from the Gulf states, shutting down their competitors' access to this energy. It suited all these goals, and like, was the reason ever relevant anyway? Like, we know from, it's a fact, right? I don't think anyone really would dispute this, but like we know that the war on terror, or like the war in Iraq, was completely made on false pretenses. Like, they lied about that, and so they just made up a reason to go into Iraq. Like, but they just lie about Iran constantly. And so, like, did they really need an actual reason though? A pretext to go into Iran? And so, like, is that why we're getting such confusing reports all the time on Iran? Because, like, people are looking for a reason, but there is no reason apart from just, like, controlling the situation and fucking up the region generally. And, like, people are trying to figure out what the end game is now. It's started. Like, how do you get out? And, like, everyone's looking for this golden ticket, this silver bullet that's going to explain how the world gets out of the whole crisis in the Strait of Hormuz. Like, that's not the point. The point isn't to get out. The point is to just keep this precarious position going for ages. So the world economy has to reshift its focus onto something new. It has to move on to new relations and new trading and new energy dependence in other places. Dilemma is not all white supremacists back Izzy, LOL. Fair enough. Do you know personally there? Yeah, I've met a few of them. Not all of them. Back Izzy. Bento Bandit, they don't need a reason. They need a cover story. But yeah, and that's the thing. Like, they're not even... Like, a cover story would be nice. Like, a cover story. They just cycle through heaps of different ones all the time. Oh, it's today's nuclear weapons. Yesterday's regime change. Tomorrow it'll be like, I don't know, the threat of violence, destabilization in the region, like humanitarian cause, like all this sort of bullshit nonstop.
But it's hugely worrying. And again, this evangelical Christian sort of Armageddon idea is very linked to and taken advantage of by Israel, because they, although it means rapture would mean Jewish people would die if they don't convert to Christianity. They use that Christian evangelical base because the massive conflagration is in their interest, and they're presenting it as Iran as this holy war to the Trump administration, and it feeds into all these people. I mean, it came out in the New York Times recently that Netanyahu came to Washington before the Iran attack and did a PowerPoint presentation to senior Trump administration officials, and basically just said, we have to do this, we have to do that. And Trump was like, okay, let's do it. I'm behind it. So I think it is the link between evangelical Christians and Zionism and the kind of messianic parts of both of those things are clear. And Hegseth he's just an ardent Zionist. He's a nightmare. He's someone who could really blow up the whole world.
And yet you see a schism within the MAGA movement. People, Tucker Carlson, Nick Fuentes, a kind of open admirer of Hitler. Is this the spawning of an even more extremist movement within the body politic?
I think it is, and I think it's happening everywhere. But it's a natural progression, though. If you have a corrupted, rotting center, which you have in the United States, which is the Democrats and Republicans, people search for movements and parties outside of that, right? And the left seems to be nowhere organizationally. So the right capitalize. In the case of the UK, it's Reform. In the case of Trump, in the case of America, it's Trump. But their policies are not going to solve any of the problems they came to. It's all about Mexicans or Muslims. In the case of Reform in the UK, it's all about stopping the small boats that are coming across the channel. None of those, even if they did all that stuff, it wouldn't change anything, because you've got to take on the embedded interests in those countries, which is corporations and the 1%. So when they get into power and nothing gets better, even though they've been promised that it's all to do with this, and also in the case of the UK, it was Brexit. There was a whole thing that it was all about, if we can take back control from the EU, we'll be fine. None of that happened. So what the people who are suffering, who are dislocated, who don't really understand where power lies because they're fed all the propaganda from the media, where do you go at that point? You have to go more extreme. because then you're saying, well, they're not doing it the way it should be done. And here we have someone called Tommy Robinson, who's more extreme than Nigel Farage. And when Nigel Farage, who's probably going to be the next prime minister, comes in and it doesn't get better, even though he's stopping complete immigration, making refugees live like on the street, whatever it is, he's going to do all these horrible policies. They're going to then go to someone like Tommy Robinson. And in the case of Donald Trump, it's the same thing. He has completely betrayed his voter base. And next up is, and he's also done. It is true. A lot of the criticism about him just doing the bidding of Israel is true. So that the actual genuine anti-Semitic right can take advantage of the fact that Donald Trump has done so much of his foreign policy in the Middle East, at least, is being done at the behest of Netanyahu, and it's hugely worrying. I think it's. I mentioned the similar political culture we have now to the time of Mussolini and Hitler. I don't think it is over the top to say to compare our current epoch with the 1930s. Like, we're at
Pretty crazy observation there, and pretty scary. It's not too far-fetched to compare the current political climate to what was happening in the 1930s. Scary analysis there. Is he right, though? There's but there's crossroads referencing the easy flags at pro-right rallies. The US is making the Iranian soccer team fly in and out for each match, which is a little mean. Interesting. Are you a fan of Hitler if you're a fan of the Autobahn? Gucci was a fan. The Autobahn is pretty neat, to be honest. Spent a whole month in Germany going to metal festivals and using the Autobahn. Sometimes you got to crack a few eggs to bake a cake. You got to crack a few eggs to make an Autobahn. Am I right? Everybody loves a good roadway. Oh, man. Interesting.
At the beginning of it, and it might not end with concentration camps and gas chambers, but it could end with a more Mussolini-style fascism, which is not that different to Trump. I mean, all the "Make America Great" is phraseology from fascist Italy. The complete rhetorical disregard for free press, for the Constitution, for Congress. It's all veering one way. And as I say, it's going to get more extreme. And then obviously, I don't want to sound like a conspiracy theorist, but obviously the Reichstag fire happened in 1933, right? And that was this is in Nazi Germany, and that was used by Hitler to pass the enabling laws, which allowed him basically to dismantle democracy. It does feel like if there is a major attack in the United States, that the fervor that there was, and we saw this a bit with Charlie Kirk, and the rhetoric that came out from Stephen Miller and people who said we're going to actually just destroy the people of darkness, he called them. A big actual terrorist attack on could. Yeah, I think that everything's in place for him to really just completely dismantle American democracy. And then there's also the question of what happens at the end of his term. Like, does he leave? I can't. Like, he barely left last time. Well, he didn't leave willingly last time, but I don't know. I think that so many of the norms, so many of the assumptions that we believed about America and the protections and the Constitution and the balance of power and checks and balances, it's all up in the air and has actually been proven to be air. That they didn't plan, that they didn't plan. The founding fathers didn't plan for someone like Trump. And as you say, and you mentioned in the question, we could be getting someone worse or like even more extreme than Trump. And that is, I'm talking about the sort of extreme neo-Nazi type person.
I want to ask you about ICE, the creation of ICE. They draw from these disenfranchised veterans often, as well as far right-wing groups like the Proud Boys. How do they play into the equation?
Well, yeah, as you mentioned, they often have huge, high percentage of veterans. And it's the same culture. It's ICE are given impunity in the same way. You know, we've seen them murdering people and getting away with it. And again, it comes from the top. People like Steve.
This guy sounds like me. All I got to do is pitching and crocheting. No handlebars. Sounds like that.
Stephen Miller said we're not going to do anything about these people, so that they're signalling to these institutions and the people within them, you can carry out impunity and you can kill people.
Like,
Americans,
I think that's a fair call. Like, when you say openly as an administration or like a powerful figure, Like we're not going after you. Like if like people are conducting like what is it constitutes or amounts to like murder basically of American citizens, even if they are like within, I don't know, they're in uniform while they're doing it, and they might have some veiled justification behind it. Like if you just say no, we're not investigating this shit, so go fuck yourself. And like half the country is like, you should investigate, this is murder, and the other half is like, no, it's fine. You know, it was fully justified. Like in the case of Renee Good, and they just shifted the guy off, and like now he's on the beat somewhere else, and they were just like, no, we're not investigating this guy. It's not happening. Like it really is a fucking signal to everyone that might be joining ICE for nefarious purposes, not because they care about, I don't know, migration or like stopping criminals or something like that. Like people that are joining ICE because like ideologically they want to go fucking crack down on migrants or something, like physically crack down on people and like join a legalized gang. Like when I say gang, I just mean like a group of people that just like going around and fucking using physical force and intimidation. Like it incentivizes those people. Like it really does. Like he's not wrong. If like people are like openly just being like, you guys can do whatever the fuck you want, and like we got your back. Like we're not investigating you. Go and do some crazy shit and go get trained at the same time. But just remember, like the hand that feeds you. And so like when we do call you to arms, like make sure you remember who you're working for. Some pretty scary shit. He's crocheting Antifa beanies. Trans Tifa. That's the right type of beanie.
So it's a similar dynamic. This idea has long reigned in American foreign policy, and way back to Korea and Vietnam. You know, Vietnam, there was that book by Nick Turse called Kill Everything That Moves. And if you read that book, you just understand that My Lai, the massacre there was de rigueur. It was happening every...
Wait a minute, the military attacked those who like violence? Never. No, actually we're talking about ICE. But like, yeah. But like, is that the point of ICE though? Attracting people who like violence and then giving them the green light to be violent without any standard or measure? I don't think that's the point of like law enforcement. Is for like just to hire thugs who think that they can get away with pretty crazy shit. But like, yeah, fair enough. I see your point about the military, but like even then, like there are such thing as like war crimes. Like you can't just do anything you want when you join the military. Like there are rules and rules of engagement and all that sort of stuff. So like, yes, attract violent people, but like you have to actually, they have to be disciplined. Like that's a big part of the military as well. Bennett, you don't hear much about the assassination attempts on Trump. Very quick headlines, which is very interesting. Yes. You know, it's interesting, like the investigations of like that happened, like it was July 2 years ago, that thing that happened. Like no one talks about that anymore. It's very interesting, that stuff, actually.
Every week, maybe not every day, but every week there were massacres of that scale. But it hasn't come back, that kind of impunity hasn't on a large scale come back to the policing of the American population. Obviously you had people killed at Kent State and places, but it's been patchy. Whereas now it seems like there's forces are being created that have the same martial ideology and the same impunity that can act against Americans, which is again a sign, another massive alarm bell about fascism. Because if you look at Hitler, Nazi Germany, and Mussolini's Italy, so much of we know about the Holocaust and the attacks on Jews, but what we don't understand, what we don't remember as well, is how both those ideologies were predicated on the destruction of the left. And that is how that was their main goal. Mussolini's violence and his followers' violence was directed on left-wing newspapers, unions. They just went in and beat up people and shut down newspapers. And I think that you're seeing a politicized police force, which sees its...
ICE is not law enforcement, by the way. They are immigration agents only. Yes, okay. Very true. Customs and immigration enforcement, let's just say. Yeah, definitely agree. I think it attracts those people, but it doesn't necessarily cater to them or make it easier for them unless it's to further a specific agenda in a specific area. I'm wearing a pad right now on my ear in solidarity. What do you mean? That's funny. There's an overt attempt to glorify war, which does attract a certain type: Call of Duty, CIA, Inspired, etc., news reporting. And like, yeah, like fair enough. Like drawing people into the military because of like, you know, Hollywood propaganda and all that sort of stuff, and like games and, you know, popular culture is nothing new. But like sending a message that people who want to be violent just for the sake of it, without like out of any of like outside of the realms of like term, like initial, like sorry, outside of the terms of actual engagement, like sending a message to people that they can just do whatever they want and they'll get away with it. That's crazy shit. That's how you create an actual paramilitary, one that serves you because they have your loyalty. Because like as you as an administration have attracted them in, and they can do whatever they want and they'll get away with it because you'll have their back. That's actually how you create like a personal army, as opposed to a group of people that want to serve the state. Like most people join the like law enforcement or the military or something because they want to serve the country. And so like the country is not like the private interests of whoever's the president at the time or in the administration. It's supposed to be like you're there for the public interest, for the good of your nation. You're serving your brothers and sisters, your fellow citizens, not serving someone's political interest, someone like a charismatic leader or something like that. So like giving people a green light to do crazy stuff because you've got their back and you'll dismiss them, you'll give them like a pardon, or like you won't investigate them, like that's like, hey, you go and do whatever the fuck you feel like if you politically align with me and my agenda, and I will fucking cover you every day of the week. That's how you create your own like personalized army. And like that is as fashy as you get, like honestly. So like there's nothing I think wrong historically with what he's saying. Like if that's what is happening now, and these people are saying things like, we're not going to investigate you, they're literally not doing things like that. Like that is producing a culture of like paramilitaries within the United States. Maybe it's not everyone, but like if there's a large enough groupings of these people, you can start to form people that have their loyalty or their allegiances to people, like individuals, as opposed to the state or the country or, you know, the nation, etc., etc. I know a lot of higher ups in Afghanistan passed down to hush must depend on uranium rounds. Substructures within the higher hierarchy, but they do get away with it. That's the point. Yeah, and then they're like energized, and then they do it again and again.
Enemy as the left, and you saw that even with the defense of the people that were murdered by ICE. The right was saying, well, look, these are scum, sort of down and outs, bleeding hearts. They're basically othering them to the point where making it permissible that Americans can be killed for their political ideology if they're on the left, of course. So it has parallels, but so it's again incipient fascism. Again, it's linked to Israel as well, because the attacks on free speech, and if you look at what's happened to there was that footage of that green card holder. I think she was a Turkish student, or maybe she was on a student visa, but who was manhandled off the street by undercover ICE officers for writing an article in a student newspaper, which I then read, which was quite mild in itself. And I just thought, this is a massive alarm bell that I kind of had a double take and think, did this actually happen? But then it becomes normalized. And then again, that was done at the behest of Israel, or the different organizations that work for Israel in America. They've got lists of people. So if you can so easily dismantle what we assume we have as freedoms, then it's not going to be harder to go the next level and say, well, we don't want to we don't mind if people are killed, or we don't mind if there's not new elections, or we don't recognize those elections. I think that we're on a slippery slope, and things are being normalized now that we wouldn't have even believed could be normalized a long time ago. But it's part of a whole, I think, fascistic administration, but not all of it not all of their base is fascistic, but the upper echelons, people like Stephen Miller, they see this as their time to destroy the left. And I don't know. And then the Democrats, who are meant to be the left or represent the left, are nowhere. They're part of the same congealed blob in Washington that represents the establishment. So it's very, very, it's scary. It's scary. And again, just to mention, it's happening in the UK too. There's a reform, the sort of Trumpian far right party to the right of the Conservative Party. They're now leading all the polls. They just won the election 2 days ago, the local elections, in a huge way. Nigel Farage is meant to be is odds on to be the next prime minister. Now, one of their candidates.
Such a good picture of Farage, isn't it? So good. Having a dart, having a beer. This one's for all of you boys, hey? This is your new prime minister. So good.
For a mayoralty in the UK, he was literally calling for me to be arrested for my reporting on Gaza for months, and it eventually got into some alternative media, and he stopped saying it. But if they get into power, people like him are going to be in government, and it's what happens to people like me. What happens to other journalists who are already being arrested and raided under a Labour government? So it's a global trend and a global phenomenon, which is based, its heart is in Washington and Trump. And Trump is the lodestar, as well as Netanyahu. But Trump is, from Bolsonaro to reform here to Milei, it's a very, very scary thing. But so, as I say, it's important to understand. I think if we're going to try and combat it and come up with strategies, we have to understand the base. And understanding the base is impossible to do without, in the United States particularly, without understanding the war on terror and what it did to millions of Americans that served in it, and where those people are going now, and what their concerns are, and what the political forces that are taking advantage of their concerns are.
Great. Thank you, Matt. And I want to thank Diego and Max, who produced the show. You can find me at chrishedges.substack.com.
Yeah, good on your mate. Good on you. Oh, wait, what's this dilemmas that you put in here? Tell me this is fucking safe for work. Hey, this is the music video for the people that we've been talking about in this. If I was in the trenches, I think the rules aren't worth dying for. Just saying. Yeah, fair enough. What's this? HK clap. Print shot repeat. The HK slap official music video. 3 years ago. My wife is German and she thinks I'm gay now. Okay. The hell is this? Yeah, this is the caliber of people they're talking about for the vets out there. Okay. Wants to take over the country, LOL. Now think of their guns as their penises. Brave? Yeah, apparently this is the theme tune of the people we were just learning about. I squirted it. Music of the people that they were just whinging about in the last video that we watched about like hardcore neo-Nazi types taking over military positions and potentially being turned into some form of paramilitary that's going to somehow serve the interests of the American Christian nationalist and fascist rise. And like this is what the type of music that they would love. This one's for you, everybody. No, I hope you enjoyed that. I hope you. Thanks for the submission there, Dilemmas. Sign me up, yeah. Oh my god. I'm just imagining how awkward it would be to arrive at the range and seeing this being filmed. LOL. My husband bought me this on the iTunes, and I have to hear it every time someone calls. Thanks, guys. Oh man, that first comment. Yeah, my wife is German. She thinks I'm gay now. All right. That's enough. This is their recruitment video. The idea being a majority of ex-vets are just goofballs who consume this content. Not something to fear. Yeah, well, I don't think they were even talking about the majority of vets, to be honest. But yes, if this is what the majority of vets are, then like bring it on, baby. Okay. We're going to leave it there. I have got to bounce. But thank you, everyone who's been hanging out on this public holiday. If this is your public holiday, if not, then don't worry about it. I've retracted my comments from earlier. But thank you, even despite the technical issues that we've had today, being kicked off the YT realm. What the fuck happened there? Why did we actually get censored? Like, did we actually? Like, we all knew what we were talking about at the time. It's not the first time this has happened, and it happened exactly a year ago. I want to say. Yeah, we've been kicked off YouTube for this type of stuff before. Like, remember on Friday when we got the copyright kind of issue? Like, they put us back on once we stopped the video. They didn't put us back on this time. I only imagine what was going on today with the algorithm. But anyway, thank you everybody who's been hanging out today. Do appreciate it. Good stream, sir. Back on the ground tomorrow. But yes, thank you everybody. Ravy, Hobo Joe, Dilemmas, Mamupa, Benzo Bandert, Spandunk in the house, 4AS, Voltatur hanging out today. Who else we got? Who else we got here? I know Jag was in earlier. Hobo Joe. If you've been lurking today, do appreciate it. Wookie. I think Xavier, we had a new person, Xavier, who had come in earlier today, who usually lurks but is new to the stream. But yeah, thank you everybody who's been hanging out. And we will be back tomorrow as we usually do. And until then, please remember, I am, you are, we are a mystery. See you on the morrow.